Hey, what's up guys? Matt here, coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, LA area's oldest, largest, and finest Harley-Davidson dealership. So today we're going to be talking about the 2025 model year Road Glide. And no, not the Road Glide Special. No, not the Road Glide ST. As many of you guys know, those different trim levels of the Road Glide were done away with last year in the 24 model year. The 24 model year launch of the Road Glide and the Street Glide was a very big historic year for those two keystone models in Harley-Davidson's lineup. So because the Road Glide had such significant changes last year, it is one of the bikes that we're seeing early on in the 25 model year because it didn't undergo any major changes this year. As to be expected, it got all the big changes last year, changes like a new body style that really only comes around maybe once every 10 to 15 years. So in this review, I'm going to be starting off with all the general information, kind of a broad perspective on what this bike is and who it's really designed for, what type of riding it's designed for. And then as the video goes on, I'm going to be getting into a little bit more of a detailed perspective on the different facets of this motorcycle. So just 7 days ago, Harley-Davidson released their first 6 motorcycles to be announced in the 25 model year. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you might want to check out my video that I did last week on these 6 models. Now the big question that everyone's asking right now is, when are we going to see the 25 model year in its entirety? When is the official launch? And that answer is January 23rd at 5 o'clock Central Time. Follow Harley-Davidson socials, harley-davidson.com, and they'll be informing you of exactly where you guys can watch that. I'm assuming it's going to be a YouTube video, but that's when they're going to announce the new products, things like new models, big mechanical changes to current models, things like that. But for now, let's take a look at what I think is probably Harley-Davidson's #1 best-selling model, their Road Glide, the FLTRX. So let's start off first with some basic knowledge and facts about the Road Glide and what makes it so popular. So the Road Glide is built on Harley-Davidson's touring chassis platform, so it's their best-selling, highest volume platform. Harley-Davidson is known for its Grand American touring motorcycles, bikes that you can get out on the open road, do long distance, do overnighters, you have carrying capacity in the saddlebags and things like that. Harley-Davidson basically invented the Grand American touring segment within the motorcycle world, and the Road Glide with its unmistakable shark nose fairing in the front has become one of those iconic looks within the Harley-Davidson lineup, starting in 1980 with the Tour Glide, the first stationary or frame-mounted fairing that Harley-Davidson offered. Then in 1998, Harley-Davidson redesigned their stationary fixed fairing design and called it the Road Glide for the first time. Then that would be the first official generation of the Road Glide. And although the reception of the Tour Glide and the Road Glide weren't anywhere near the reception of the Batwing fairing models, they were slowly but surely increasing in popularity, and they've always kind of been the more performance-oriented design between the two Batwing and shark nose fairings. And then in 2015, Harley-Davidson launched the Gen 2 Road Glide fairing, or the Rushmore fairing, and that's when the popularity really started to skyrocket within the rider base. A lot more people were choosing to go frame-mounted shark nose fairing over the fork-mounted Batwing fairing. And although both designs were very popular, we started to see the Road Glide popularity really take off, especially some of the new riders that were getting into the Grand American riding scene. And then halfway through the 23 model year, we saw for the first time the new Road Glide and Street Glide body styles with the all new redesigned fairings. Of course, they were exclusively available on the 23 model year CVOs at that time for about a half a year. And then in the 2024 model year, we saw the non-CVO version of the Road Glide and Street Glides receive their new fairings. So that's when we saw this Gen 3 Road Glide shark nose fairing come out on the non-CVO models. And it came out with a whole new body redesign, tank, bags, side covers, infotainment, hand controls, just a really big refresh. If you guys want to see all the nitty-gritty details of when this bike was first launched in the 24 model year, I would definitely recommend checking out my video of the 24 model year review of the Road Glide. I'm going to link that in the upper right hand corner here. I'm going to be going over a lot of the same information that I went over in that video, but just under a different lens of what's available right now in the 25 model year and what's changed, because there are some changes with paint and pricing and things like that. But for the most part, all the mechanical equipment is pretty much the same. So I will will be going over a lot of the same stuff that I went over last year, but probably not in as great a detail. So if this video leaves you wanting even more detail, definitely check out my 24 model year Road Glide review. But basically guys, in the 25 model year, Harley-Davidson has 4 different platforms in which it builds all of its motorcycles off of. The smallest, least expensive, lightest one is going to be the Rev Max platform. That's where you've got your Nightster Special, and your Sportster S. Basically the new generation of Sportsters that replaced the air-cooled Evo Sporties that we've known for so long. And you've also got Harley-Davidson's adventure touring bike, the Pan America, being built on the Rev Max platform as well. That's kind of in a category of its own because it is so significantly different than the Sportsters, although it is still built off that same Rev Max engine, which is a stressed member. You just change the subframe, the forks, and other pieces on the bike to basically turn it into a whole new motorcycle. It's a very modular platform. Harley-Davidson definitely did that by design. And then you've got the Softails, which is Harley-Davidson's mid-size cruisers with the Milwaukee 8. The Milwaukee 8 is Harley-Davidson's core air-cooled V-twin motor that has the sound, look, and character that everybody has grown to know and love about Harley-Davidson. The new Softail frame did just come about relatively recently in the 2018 model year, where it basically gobbled up the Dyna line. If you guys want to learn more about that, check out my Death of the Dyna video that I did. I'm going to link that in the upper right hand corner as well. And then that leads us to the touring chassis, some of the most famous bikes that Harley-Davidson makes. Bikes like the Road King, the Street Glide, the Road Glide, the Ultra Limited, the Road Glide Limited. These are Harley-Davidson's core touring machines. They're bread and butter. And so the Road Glide is built on this frame. If you want to go even bigger, heavier, expensive, you can go up to the Tri Glide where you add a wheel. Harley-Davidson has announced the 25s this model year. You got the Freewheeler, you got the Road Glide 3, and then you have the Tri Glide. So the Road Glide is definitely in the higher end of the spectrum of size, weight, price tag, functionality, equipment, all of the above. It's just a lot of bike. It's a lot of motorcycle. But the touring bike scene and market really has changed significantly in the last 15 years as well. For a long time, the touring bikes were only meant to be toured on. It was kind of your grandpa's bike that he got when he retired and traveled around the country. Everything was about function and comfort. Things like comfortable seats, fairings to block the wind, cargo space. Very little effort was put into style and engine performance. But a lot of that started to change in the early 2000s. Guys started customizing these bikes, using them for more than going interstate and touring the country. They kind of became the SUVs of the motorcycle world. Of course, Harley-Davidson factories started taking note, and they launched a bike called the Street Glide in 2006. This would be the first time that Harley-Davidson really started to make some style choices based on the aftermarket custom bagger world. And then that style really perpetuated. It perpetuated very heavily in the CVO lineup, and a lot of that style then trickled over to the Road Glide, and the Road Glide adopted all those styling points of the Street Glide as well. If you guys want more on this story, I made a video about how the Street Glide changed the motorcycle world forever. I'm going to put a link in the top right hand corner to that video as well. But if you kind of want to learn about the origins of the Road Glide and how the styling choices and the evolution has kind of come to what we see the bike today, it's important to know the history, and you're going to get a lot of that history in that video. So let's start off first, guys, with what is arguably the most important part of the whole motorcycle, and that is the 117 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 engine. So this beast has a lot of power. It puts out 105 horsepower and puts out 130 foot-pounds of torque. This is a lot better than those of you who own Harleys in the late 90s and the early 2000s, with that twin cam 88 that a lot of times felt underpowered. I've never had anybody tell me that they felt like their 117 was underpowered. Starting last year, they did introduce ride modes to the Road Glide and Street Glide. You'll want to go ahead and put that in sport mode. In sport mode is where you're going to get access to all the power. There is a time and place for road mode and rain mode, and then the customizable modes as well. In fact, it might be a good idea to take the time and customize a mode that's right for you. But the ride modes are really going to tailor a bunch of different things: the throttle responsiveness, the power output, the power progressivity, the level of intervention with your rider aids, things like traction control and ABS. So ride modes do make a big difference. Typically speaking, if I'm just cruising or if I'm splitting lanes or something like that, I put it into road mode. But if I'm listening to some metal music or something like that and I'm cranking on it, I always throw it into sport mode. Another big change that they made last year was they changed the heads on these Milwaukee 8 motors, so they changed the water cooling system in the head. Before, it was a precision oil cooling system where they piped cooled oil around the exhaust ports, like the heads, the hottest part of the engine, and now they have a water cooling system that's very similar but a lot more effective. So you've got a radiator on the front down tube of the bike, right where the oil cooler used to be, and that pipes coolant starting with the rear head first through the heads of the engine. This is something I think a lot of people don't talk much about, but is a big change. I believe the number they threw out there was that it lowers the engine operating temperature by 40 degrees. And before I even knew that number, I just felt that there was a lot less heat coming up, radiating up off the engine. So that is pretty dang nice in the hotter times of year. With that as well, they were able to increase the compression ratio slightly, squeeze a little bit more performance out of the engine as well. A lot of people will ask about reliability as well. The Milwaukee 8, now that it is in its 9th year, is a very reliable engine. We do not see very many major mechanical failures with the M8s anymore. Back in the early days, there was things like the oil pump that got a lot of press. Even that was blown way out of proportion in my opinion. But they've gone through a few different iterations of the oil pump and they've got that resolved at this point. Starting with last year's redesign, they did go with like a whole new electrical system on these, a whole new body control module, the BCM, and electronic control unit, the ECU. And for the most part, we haven't had any problems, but we have had a couple electrical gremlins with some of our customers. Problems with charging system or the bike just shutting off. Harley-Davidson did have a recall. One of the ground wires that was running underneath the motorcycle was getting frayed or damaged or something like that and causing the motorcycle to shut down. That has been resolved now. Now that we have a year of people buying and owning these bikes, I think a few electrical gremlins here and there have been like the only thing we've seen reliability wise on this bike. We have had a couple lifter failures on CVOs with the 121s, but it's been really nice to see the transformation over the last 40 years of Harley-Davidson just being notorious for having issues, you know, in the 70s and whatnot. And now Harley-Davidson, it's easy to say that they are by far one of the most reliable motorcycles you can buy. But overall, this 117 is a nice, peppy, powerful engine. The Milwaukee 8 is awesome just because the upgrade possibilities are endless on these things. Do you have to upgrade it? Absolutely not. These things are plenty powerful right out of the box. So let's talk about suspension real quick. So with the refresh, they did improve the suspension quite a bit. In the tail end, they doubled the suspension travel from 1.5 to 3 inches. They also improved the shocks, like the internals. We are definitely finding that more people are satisfied with the stock suspension. I have the CVO version of the Road Glide, the CVO Road Glide ST to be exact, and that comes with an even higher end suspension than this bike, and I don't think I'm going to change it. I'm pretty dang happy with it. The key, guys, and a lot of people don't do this, the key is to set your preload properly based on your weight. If you ride solo and then add a passenger, by adding that passenger, you're completely throwing off your preload. If you'd like to learn how to set your preload properly, I'm going to link a video on how to do that, my tutorial in the top right hand corner. The brakes on these bikes have been really good for a really long time now. Harley-Davidson swapped over to Brembo brakes back in 2008 or 9, somewhere around there. And the braking performance has really always been good since then. You do have ABS on these bikes as well. It's standard equipment. You've also got traction control. The initial bite on the brakes are really good. You've got good progressive lever feel all the way through. You also have an adjustable lever depending on what hand size you have. That's adjusted at the knob on a lever on the front brake only. I think another facet of this new redesign that gets overlooked a lot is the seat. So they did redesign the stock seat on here. They changed the pan and it kind of puts your hips in a different position. Kind of where that lower lumbar lip meets the parallel flat part of the seat has changed. It's a little bit different cupping shape and it made a big difference. The internals, the padding inside the seat have also been improved. Because of the hot rod nature of the style of this bike, the seat is kind of your low profile seat. So if you're going to use your bike more for longer trips like I do personally, you're probably going to want to change out this seat. I think this seat is kind of like a 2-hour seat, a 3-hour seat, right around there. But if you're doing 10 hours in a day of riding or whatever, you're probably going to want to swap that out to like a sundowner seat, is Harley-Davidson's comfort-oriented seat. But I think the rider and the passenger portion of the seat is significantly better than like the Road Glide and Street Glide special seats that we've seen now for a very long time. And the Road Glide and Street Glide STs that we saw in 22 and 23, don't even get me started on that piece of crap seat. It's so hard and so uncomfortable. I hate that seat. So let's talk lighting real quick. I think lighting was a big criticism on these touring bikes for a very long time. You know, everybody complained that it wasn't LED all the way around. Well, I'm happy to be able to say now that everything is all LED around these bikes now. I think the LED headlight design in the front is really cool look on these Road road glides. Coming down the road, it just has a really cool, modern, sharp look to it. It illuminates the road really nice. In the past, I've always upgraded my lighting on every Harley-Davidson I've owned. However, I think this may be the first bike that I don't upgrade the lights. Like I mentioned, I did get a 24 model year Road Glide CVO ST last year, which has the exact same lights that the non-ST bike has. So I'll probably just keep the stock lighting in my Road Glide. In the tail end, you've got the two light strips between the fender and the saddlebags. All LED, turn signals are all integrated in there. I've seen guys add like little light pods down on their engine guard for some extra light, and that's cool if you really want to light up the road. If you're out late on those open dark roads with very little lighting, yeah, you can benefit from some extra lights, and I know a lot of people add them. Another look that I kind of like on these new Road Glide fairings as well is the Baja lights with the LP6s. A couple guys are making the brackets to fit this new fairing now, so if I was to upgrade the lights, I'd probably do that, but that's just total overkill. It does give it a cool, aggressive look though.
Hey guys, we are here talking about the new 2025 Road Glide. So the one we have here in front of us is the Midnight Firestorm, which is a vivid black base, which if you're just getting a vivid black bike on the pricing structure with the black trim, we're talking about MSRP at $27,999 for the year of 2025 on this bike. When you're adding the black trim, you're adding $1,350. And for the vivid black color, you're adding another $600. For this paint job with the Ghost Flames that I personally think are beautiful, we'll get into my opinion in a minute, we're talking about a $2,900 upcharge. So I've already had a couple conversations with customers that range everywhere from that's pretty inexpensive for a flame paint job to the Moco shouldn't be charging quite as much as they are. Sometimes your personal value is there for a certain bike and sometimes it isn't. And we don't all like different colors. I think this is one of the most beautiful colors. When I think about Harleys, and one of the reasons I like having long hair is there was this TV show, if any of you are older like us, called Renegade. He had long hair and he was a bounty hunter and he rode this Harley-Davidson with flames on the tank and he kicked bad guys' asses. And that's kind of like, I like Harleys with flames. So I like this personally. A lot of guys don't like flames or they prefer a different style of paint job. Again, there's that subjectivity, there's that personal preference there. So we do have two flame paint jobs this year. One is the Whiskey Firestorm, the other is the Midnight Firestorm. Whiskey Firestorm is obviously with the Whiskey Fire base that we saw in the 2024 model year. And then Midnight Firestorm is on the vivid black base. I think the colors are cool for this year. It's nice to see a little bit of change. We got some purple, we have the Mystic Shift, we have a couple flame paint jobs. I think we do have a wider variety than we've had over the last couple of years. So we've had two-tone paint jobs. They were very Harley panel two-tone paint jobs. I think in recent years on non-CVO models and non-anniversary models, we haven't really seen a paint job quite like this. So I'm personally happy that something like this is coming out. 2022, we had the Envious Green Fade that was a green flame paint job on CVOs. We had the Dante's Red Fade, which I thought was a very beautiful flame paint job. So a lot of people have mentioned like, oh, like flames are, coming back. We haven't seen flames in forever, but we have, they've just haven't been on standard models. So I'm really excited to see a little bit more flame paint jobs out in the world, because most of the time that you see a flame paint job, it's either a CVO or it's a fully custom painted, tricked out, built out bike. So I think this is really cool. I think this is a cool platform to see a little bit more variety out in the Harley world, and especially on a black bike. I like that because the old saying is that the bartender turns off the music and says there's a Harley outside with its headlight on, it's black, and everybody stands up. So hopefully in this case they would say it's black with ghost flames.
So let's cover a few more really important aspects of this motorcycle. Let's talk about the fairing. It's a new fairing, obviously, and so a lot of people want to know how it performs in the wind, how's the new infotainment system. So let's actually start first with style. Personally, I like the style. That's one of those subjective things where you either love it or you hate it. I actually really liked the old Rushmore shark nose fairing as well, but I do feel like this is a nice modern refresh on the fairing. I think if that old fairing was run for very much longer, it would just start to be like, wow, Harley needs to do something about this. Let's get an update going on here. So the fact that they did update it before people were even sick of the old one, I think is probably a good move to keep everything fresh. And as I talk to people, I think more people like it than don't like it, which is always a good thing. But the wind deflection performance, I feel like, is slightly better than the old one as well. I've got a little under 5,000 miles on my bike, and I do have a taller windshield on it. I think if you're creeping up to 6 feet or above, you're going to want to put a taller windshield on there. But if you have the right height of windshield, the combination of body wind deflection and head wind deflection is really good on these things. It cuts the wind really good. It's very stable at high speeds. So I do feel like the new fairing performs really well in the wind. Now, a really big thing that Harley-Davidson did is they got rid of all the analog gauges on the inside of the fairing and they went to just everything digital. They have a big 12.3-inch infotainment screen, and so everything's all electronic. Some people like analog gauges. I kind of like them too, but honestly, now that I have digital, I really don't miss the analog gauges at all, especially since I can customize the gauges exactly how I want it. There's like 3 different viewable modes on these infotainment systems: sport, touring, and cruising mode, I think it's called. The gauges are just larger, higher contrast, and so you can just see them better. The infotainment system was one of those things that I was like, okay, bigger screen, whatever, big deal. I'm not like a huge electronics guy, but after having the new infotainment system, I use it a lot. I use Apple CarPlay on it pretty much 100% of the time. The music's better. The stereo system, by the way, I would say is maybe just slightly better than the old Rushmore fairing stereo system. However, I do have the CVOs. Mine has the Boom Audio Stage 2 speakers in there, and those are significantly better than like the stock speakers. You can hear them crystal clear going down the freeway 80 miles an hour with a helmet on. It's really good stuff. I really like the bars. The stock bars on these new Road Glides are just taller, and they're just better for tall guys. They're a lot more comfortable. Even if you're not a super tall person, I think a lot more people are just more comfortable with this bar shape. The old bars stock just came with this really weird like buckhorn shape to them. Everybody changed them out. I think there's going to be a lot more people that don't change bars now that they've been updated on these new Road Glides. Hand controls are a lot more busy. Visually, I liked the looks of the old hand controls better. However, functionally, these new hand controls are better. You can just menu dive and get to what you're looking for a lot quicker, and so I do prefer them. I hate the cruise control positioning though. I much preferred the old cruise control with that little joystick on your left finger. Now you have to like use your pointer finger. It's on the top. You can't really see it very well, and even after using muscle memory for a while, it's still kind of awkward, and I hit the wrong button once in a while. That is one thing they did change from the 24 to 25 model year that I noticed. They changed the finishes on the switch housings. It's like a dull black now. I think that's going to wear a little bit better and keep it looking nicer for longer. The 24s had like a high gloss vivid black paint finish on the metal switch housings, and after wiping them and after kind of wear and tear, it got some of the swirl marks and stuff that you get like in vivid black paint over time. But now you have kind of like a dull finish, which is the way that the old switch housings used to be on the previous generation Road Glides. And I feel like the switches this year in the 25 model year are a little bit tighter as well. I found myself sometimes inadvertently pressing the ignition on the top of my switch housings and turning it off inadvertently as well. And so it's a little bit sturdier tactile feel on the new switches this year in the 25 model year. The fuel tank was reshaped, as I mentioned earlier last year. It's a little bit lighter as well. You still have the same 6-gallon fuel tank. I do like how they simplified the gas filler. You don't have a janky little spring-loaded cap now that you have to undo and then twist a plastic cap underneath that. It's like you used to have to open up 2 caps to get to your gas. Now it's just the single one. It just feels like a lot higher quality now as well. All in all, guys, I think this Road Glide is going to continue just to be a dominant seller in Harley-Davidson's lineup. They're just good all-around dominant bikes. They excel out on the freeway, high speeds. They're super comfortable, very versatile. You take them overnight. The attachment options you can put on them out of the Harley-Davidson parts catalog is awesome. Different seats, passenger backrest. You can throw tour packs on there. I've got a Chop tour pack on mine. You can throw the King tour pack on there. different windshields you can put on there. You have a lot of different options on changing out the bars as well on the Road Glide. And I know a lot of people are talking about the price increase this year. The base price for the Road Glide went up $2,000 this year. That's still cheaper than the 21s, 22s, and 23s, guys, with the RDRS and the surcharge and the upcharge for the black engine trim. So when you compare these bikes to like the Road Glide Special or the Road Glide ST, these are still less money as long as you get like a black one or a gray one even. So I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, people are getting priced out of these bikes. Well, guys, the prices last year, if you account for inflation, were the lowest the Road Glide has ever cost in the history of the motor company. Again, if you account for inflation, and it was the best equipped Road Glide we've ever seen as well. And sales didn't go up last year. So one of the things that we always talk about on this channel is just demand really isn't dictated by price on Harley-Davidsons to a certain extent. So bottom line is these bikes are still less expensive than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago in like equipped models on the Special and the STs. Anyways, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, if you're looking for a new or used Harley-Davidson in Southern California, hit us up here at Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, where we have absolutely no added dealer markup, no extra junk dealer fees, transparent pricing. I'll see you guys every Friday live on my YouTube channel for Out the Door Fridays, where I calculate a brand new bike's price out the door. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Later.